Welcome to the first episode of Bossy Mamas Podcast, a melanated podcast following three mamas on their journey as they navigate motherhood while following their ambitions to become successful businesswomen. We're here recording from the Sunny Bay area, and I'm your host, Des, a mom to a 1-year-old girl and carrying my son currently, and I'm here with my beautiful co-hosts, TT and Jess.
How are we feeling today, mamas?
I'm feeling great. I'm away from my kids. I get to talk with you lovely ladies. How about you, Des?
Yes, I'm feeling good. Hooray for a break from the kids.
So today we're going to be discussing on the topic of maternal mortality rates in America. We'll also be sharing our birth stories and giving tips on ways we as mothers find healing in today's society. So stay tuned.
So yes, today we will be talking about maternal mortality rates in the U.S., which basically means the decline in health and survival of women after giving birth, primarily Black women. Each year, more than 65,000 pregnant women in the U.S. suffer life-threatening complications, including physical and psychological conditions aggravated by pregnancy, and more than 600 die from pregnancy-related causes. Now, you can imagine how even worse this is for Black and brown women all across the states. And a doctor currently reported that inadequate health care in rural areas, or what we might call hoods, and racial disparities are drivers of this maternal health crisis. So they're saying nationally, African American women are 3 to 4 times more likely than white women to die from pregnancy-related causes. Of course, this is a very serious and sad topic, and us as mothers, we can definitely relate to that. So we're going to go ahead and share some of our birth experiences, and we're going to start with Jess.
So I have 2 children. I have a daughter who's going to be 4 in June, a son who's going to be 2 in May. And with my daughter, my experience was great. I'm not going to lie about that. I went in, I saw my doctor when I was supposed to. It's a Black man, so I was very comfortable with him. I actually went over. I was 41 weeks and 1 day when I went into labor, and I started contracting at home. They had scheduled me for an induction the same day, coincidentally, and we went in about 5 o'clock. They gave me the Pitocin. I was in labor maybe 8 hours and I popped her out. My nurses were very kind and nice. My delivery staff or delivery team, they were Caucasian, so it kind of bothered me because I was used to all Black staff, not gonna lie. But my total overall experience was great. The one thing I wanted to do with her, I wanted to keep my placenta. I didn't get that opportunity to. So 2 years later, here comes my son, and I'm actually 38 weeks. No, I'm sorry. I was 39 weeks when I gave birth to him, 39 and 6 days. And I went in because I was contracting. His heart rate was dropping, so they had to add that Pitocin to me, get that labor started. And he came out 11 hours later. I saw his placenta. I touched it. I felt it. I did what I wanted to do. And I had the mirror because I wanted to have a mirror with my daughter, and I didn't get that as well. So I saw myself push this little boy out of my vagina, and it blew my mind away. Like, oh my God, my body is so amazing. I can do this. I'm literally every woman right now. Whitney Houston was playing in the background. I felt so strong and so fierce, and I'm lucky enough to have had the support team that I had with me. My husband was there, my mother-in-law was there, my sister came late, but they made sure that everything that I wanted this go round, it was there, especially the mirror and saving my placenta. Afterwards, everything went well. I can say that, especially with my son. I breastfed him. I didn't get a chance to breastfeed my daughter because I had to go back to work, and it was drama. You know, being a new mom, first-time mom, your job's not understanding. I worked at a primarily male, white-dominated location or employer at the time. And with my son, I was just able to bond with him and love on him. So luckily, I had good birth experiences. Now, if somebody knocked me up, and I do mean my husband, not just anybody. this third go round, I would love to have a doula because I just want that intimate care between me and this person and my child. I don't necessarily need to go see the doctor every month. I'm already popped out too. I know what to do. I know the signs. I know the symptoms. I think it's beautiful for women who are able to have natural births and home births. I was okay at the hospital. I like the treatment. I like having my meals brought to me. I like not having to deal with my crazy loud neighbors. But I do want to hear about you ladies and your stories because everybody is different. So Des, tell me about yours.
Yeah, my experience, so I definitely started out going into this pregnancy, which was only my first pregnancy up until now. I had done all my research about how to do it the natural way, how to do it with a home birth or a doula, and so on and so forth. But I realized my home space I didn't feel was adequate enough to bring a life into. So I did start out doing just the old hospital route, and I have amazing insurance, so everything was covered and that was all good. But once I started, much like you, Jess, when I started talking to my doctor about things I wanted to do, like keeping the placenta, having a lotus birth, like giving birth in other positions and stuff like that, I was immediately shut down. Like, oh no, you're not going to be able to do this. I'm going to tell you that now. And that's literally what the doctor had told me. So from that day, I told myself, like, I don't want anybody to make a decision about something as big as giving birth in my life just because of whatever your training or your lack of knowledge is, period. So from then on, I made the decision to research a birthing center. I found an amazing birthing center in Berkeley called Pacifica Family Center, and they're amazing. They're right on Telegraph for anybody local, but they were great. So there was just a whole bunch of doulas there, basically, and midwives. And you were seen by somebody different every time you went, which was kind of different, but I like that too. There was a few women of color, not one black woman, which I would have preferred if there was a black woman, just to have that initial comfort. But I did feel like I was well taken care of and everything was planned well, but nothing really goes to plan, as everybody knows, but especially moms. So once it came to me actually giving birth, I was laboring at home for a couple days before, and I wasn't drinking water, which is like my biggest regret, because when it came time to go to give birth at the birthing center, I was severely dehydrated. And so in the middle of contracting and getting ready to start the pushing process, I was sick to my stomach. So I was like convulsing and stuff while having contractions, and it was horrible. Like, I was sick to my stomach. And I love them, and I love a lot of birthing centers like this because they give you an option to, look, when it gets too much, you feel like you need medicine or you feel like you need any kind of hospital intervention, let us know and we will go. You go to the hospital and we'll follow you there. So that's what they did. They followed me to the hospital because I told them, I'm sorry, I wanted to do this. I wanted to be strong and I wanted to be the woman that I thought I was to be able to do this naturally. But at this point in my life, I cannot. So we went to the hospital and they followed me there and they stayed the entire time. They advocated for me because, you know, as you guys might know, you tell the doctor or you tell the staff one thing and then different people keep coming in and I'm repeating myself while I'm contracting what I want for myself and what I want my birth to be like. So they really stuck with me. They advocated for me, like, no, she wants her placenta. She wants to do this and do that. So once I got to the hospital and I did get medication, I did get an epidural, it was honestly really easy, and I felt really secure knowing that I had somebody there who was advocating for me besides family, because like we said, we don't know about the health and medical world. We don't know like a lot of the buzzwords that we should say or what they're talking about when they're coming in and out of the room. So to have somebody there to do that was really helpful to me. And I gave birth to my daughter. I didn't push for very long, and that was a good experience too. And one of my midwives actually encapsulated my placenta for me after. She charges for it, but she's amazing. And that placenta, when I tell you guys, I don't know if either of you have done it.
No.
That saved my life. Like, that really, I feel like, is one of the key things that can really help most women with postpartum, especially the first 3 days. I had to wait 2 or 3 days to get my placenta pills. So for those first 2 or 3 days, I was like freaking out like an anxious wreck, and I kind of didn't realize until my husband was like, "Are you okay?" Like he started to kind of be worried about me because I was up every second of the days, like just making sure my daughter was breathing and making sure that everything was okay. And I suffer from PTSD, so that was like a huge thing. I'm just sitting there imagining everything bad that can happen to my baby. So once I got those placenta pills, it was like all of that synergy and energy and emotion and hormones that released from me giving birth so suddenly was starting to like slowly be replenished back into my body. So that, I'm telling you, I recommend anybody to encapsulate your placenta, get your tincture made, or however you want to do it. But to kind of replenish your body with what it had just lost so suddenly, I think is really important. So stuff like that helped me out, but I was really lucky to have a birthing center like that through my experience. And going into this next pregnancy and birth, I have no idea what it's going to be like. I can only hope for how it goes, but I think I am just going to go the hospital route for cost. Unfortunately, I can't, because one thing I forgot to mention is although I had amazing insurance, they don't accept insurance at out of network places like that. So I at the time paid over $5,000 just to give birth at a place that I ended up not even giving birth at. So that's just another learning experience, but that was my birth experience.
It's awesome.
TT, how was yours?
Well, I mean, I think that you doing all this research, I'm learning a lot about the encapsulation. But for me, I think that I didn't want to do a lot of things to kind of make me even more anxious about the process. I'm very spiritual and like just a very faithful person, and so I just knew that God is just gonna direct my body, and I just have to be in a space to listen to it. It was funny because I actually went and had the Prego pizza. I was like 39 weeks at the time. And I was anxious, ready for baby to come out. I'm stretched out. I mean, right. I'm like, this is the biggest I've been in my entire life. Like, I'm just over it. So I begged my husband take me over to get the Prego pizza. We drove all the way to Concord to get it, 10 o'clock at night. And so I ate that pizza. So that next morning, I'll never forget, he was actually working, and I woke up about 8 a.m. and I started to contract. And so, of course, your first baby, I'm like, I really don't know if this is a contraction or if this is Braxton Hicks. And then you're kind of like, okay, well, let's just kind of wait it out. And of course, when it starts to happen, you get anxious. And I just kept telling myself, do the opposite. Like, be at peace. Like, don't overthink it. Just like kind of ride through it. And so I started laboring that Friday morning. And I started to time my contractions. They started off at about 10 minutes apart, and then within the next couple of hours, they were at about 6 minutes apart. And so I labored, and what in my mind, I was thinking, okay, well, I did the traditional hospital route for my prenatal care just because of insurance, at my job and that kind of thing. And my experience with prenatal care was actually really great. I had a really, really good midwife. She was a white woman. I actually have not seen I've seen one Black person at the hospital where I go get my prenatal services and where I delivered, and my daughter's pediatrician is there. I've seen one Black person at the entire place, and she's actually in the lab drawing the blood. So either way, I had a really great experience overall. I felt like they were very caring, but I do feel like when you introduce, because I did talk about during my prenatal process of wanting to deliver in a different position. I actually like to squat. Ever since I was like a little girl, I'm really most comfortable with my legs like up, even to like do things, go to the bathroom. It's like a natural position where you feel like when there's tension in your body, for me, my natural way to get comfortable is to put my squat, put my legs up. So I'm like, I brought that idea to my midwife before, and she kind of was like, well, it's normally not safe, and kind of like what Des said, they'll shut that kind of thing down. And of course, it could be because of, in a hospital structure, there's all these rules, and you don't want anybody to be sued. Who knows why they don't really let you direct the process. It's kind of like, well, this may go wrong, and we haven't even got there yet. Right. And you're already telling me that, we can't do this. So it's kind of like, it kind of discouraged me from even bringing things up to her after the fact about how I wanted to do things. And so when I started to labor at home, I actually had a yoga ball that I sat on. And so my contractions were stuck at 6 minutes apart. I was able to kind of call the doctor and figure out, do I need to come now? Because my worry was, you know how you go and they say, well, you're not ready yet. So they send you home, and now I'm back and forth each time I go. This is an emergency bill room, bill, and, hey, let me figure out, is it time for me to kind of go? And so I actually ended up being stuck at 6 minutes apart for 2 days straight. So from Friday all the way up until Sunday morning at 9 a.m. is when I finally got admitted into the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
Jeez.
So I rocked back and forth on that yoga ball for 48 hours straight. I did not even get any sleep. I was just up rocking, drinking water, just trying to be in zen. I had all the lights off in my house. It was dark. I just was rocking back and forth and really just trying to breathe well, to pray. I just wanted God to please just direct me. Whatever you say, you'll tell me. I just wanted to be in tune with my soul, and so that could direct me, because honestly I did feel with the doctors, they weren't doing that for me. So I only have me to lean on, and it's kind of hard with your husband. They're men, he doesn't understand. He was asleep the whole time,
right? Yeah.
While I'm in labor, he's okay. His family's calling him. They're is she in labor? He's kinda.
I'm not quite sure, but
it sounds like it.
I'm kinda. I'm contracting 6 minutes apart. So finally, Sunday morning at 8 a.m., they admitted me into the hospital. They ended up giving me Pitocin. I had contracted a little bit. I got stuck. So when I got admitted in, I was contracted maybe 3 centimeters. I ended up getting the Pitocin at 8 a.m., about 9 a.m. in the morning. It wasn't until 8:30 when, after they had already broken my water bag, they had already given me Pitocin. At this point, I'm contracting a minute apart, still no dilation happening. And so finally, when they burst the bag, my daughter actually ended up getting an infection. And they said at this point, she's getting an infection. She's starting to panic inside, it's an emergency. And that process was kind of scary because it was just me and my husband there. I really didn't want a lot of people. I wanted it to be just me and him. I didn't want anybody in the room. That was something that we created. This is something that we'll bring into the world together. Because kind of when you have family in the room, it could be a distraction. I just wanted us to be really in tune with one another. So it was just him and I, and it was kind of scary because when they said, oh, you're going to get an emergency C-section, they just kind of threw him a scrub and a hair mat and was let's go, and it was kind of scary because I had a picture of my mom there in the room. That was important for me to have as well. And I remember and at this point I had been heavily medicated because when you get a C-section, it's not the typical epidural that you get. You actually get something that numbs you from the shoulders down.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So, with the epidural, it's the back down. With the C-section, it's actually the shoulders down. And so it was very paralyzed. It was almost like I was so medicated that I wasn't even there.
Yeah, like an out-of-body experience.
And so it was almost like I wasn't there at that point. And so I just remember them rushing to do the C-section. I remember telling my husband, grab the picture of my mom to bring into the surgeon room. It was very, very cold. I remember there were all these doctors around me, and one of them actually had a portable heater that he set up next to my head to keep me warm because my teeth were just chattering because I was just shivering. That's how cold I was. I don't know if it was the room that was cold, and of course at this time I'm under medication, so I don't even really, but I do remember, I will never forget that it was really cold. And so he held the heater by me, and I remember the doctor, it felt like she kind of tapped me with her fingers. And then she said, do you feel that? And I said, no. And she said, well, I just cut you. And she said something along the lines good, because I just started the incision.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, and all I kind of vaguely remember the process, and my husband's kind of standing there, and he's peeking over. He was able to see my placenta. The way when you get a C-section, they kind of block everything, so you can't see past this curtain. You know, you can only see to your left and to your right. You know, you can't see past your breast almost. So it's kind of like at this point, I really don't know what's happening. And so I'm kind of trusting my husband, like peek over the sheet and see like what's going on. He doesn't know as a man, you know, it's our first experience. And then now we're in a surgery room, you know, it's really like what to do. So I'm telling him like peek over and make sure. And I just remember feeling a little scared, you know, in that moment, because I'm like, this could all go wrong. And, you know, I remember when they finally did get her out, she was kind of silent at first, and I was like, what happened? Like, and I remember asking, why isn't she crying? And they were like, just give it a second. And then I heard her crying. And then I remember asking my husband, I was crying, and at this point just medicated, and I'm like, how does she, what, is she okay? And he said, well, she's not bald-headed.
You're like, well, I could have told you that. I had the heartburn the whole time.
Exactly. He's like, she's not bald-headed. I'm like, oh, good. So I remember just in that moment, they had to take her to the NICU because she had gotten an infection. So she had an IV in her little hand. So she had to go there first, which was a little sad too, because you want to be able to skin to skin first. So I wasn't able to do that. Because of the surgery, they had to make sure everything was clean. She had to go in the NICU, but as soon as they brought her to there, I remember the nurse coming in and she said, are you ready to hold her? And I'm like, bring her now.
Yeah.
And they were like, are you okay? Because they knew I was so medicated. They're like, do you want to wait until the medication no, bring her now.
No.
Yeah. I'm like, bring her in here right now. You know, I don't care if, you know, because they're like, I was so medicated that they were worried I was going to drop her, you know, like, are you going to, is it safe to hold her? You know, and now that I'm just thinking about the experience as a mom, it's like, it's a little different when it has to go that direction. But I was told at that time that, you know, all my children moving forward will have to be scheduled C-sections.
Wow.
And so that's a little discouraging because I do kind of want to try different options, you know, because I feel like my first experience having to get the emergency C-section, I feel almost a little robbed of the experience. You know, I didn't get to see my placenta. I didn't get to see her crowning or coming out. Like, I didn't get to see any of this stuff. So it's almost like, you know, eerie to hear you guys share your experiences, and it's almost like, well, you know, for my second one, I actually want to be more in control of the process and look deeper into, you know, how can you determine to someone that they'll never be able to have a natural vaginal birth? You know, what would I have to do that? And no one educated me on that. I was just told moving forward I would always have to have a C-section. So it's like, I know with my second one, I'm going to have to take the initiative to do the research and to, you know, kind of advocate for myself and let them know I want to be educated on my options, because it can't just be like, you got to get C-sections all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like, that can't just be it for me, because I do want the experience, you know, like, so it's kind of like, it was a little different for me, but my daughter was healthy after that. We were able to, what I did enjoy, they let me stay in the hospital a really long time, and it was a great experience. I remember being the only person on the floor delivering, so I had a lot of attention, and it was very quiet. It's a really nice hospital, so I mean, it was a great experience overall as far as like the hospitality that I received, but just more so about the educating myself on the process is kind of what I would want to do a little bit differently, and, you know, feel like someone's actually giving me my options.
Yeah, that's what's so kind of complicated about birth, and I'm sure people who haven't given birth, and dads probably, can't really grasp how transformative of like an experience it is, for the positive or the negative. Like, this is going to change my life forever. I remember thinking that when I was actually laboring and contracting, like, this is like one of the biggest things. If this was a roller coaster, this is like the biggest drop right now, because so much can happen, and like your experience, so much can happen that you cannot control. And that's what I have a hard time with as a mom, as a woman, as a Black woman in general in the society, but even deeper on a mom level, and something as serious and as precious as bringing your life force into this world, you not being able to control.
Right. Can I ask a quick question? We all had epidurals. You had a serious dural. I don't even know what the hell that's called. That's just a dural.
Like, okay, I just feel like I just popped 10 pills.
Oh my
This
God.
is crazy at this point.
Did you have side effects after? Because for both of my children, I experienced the worst back pain in my life. And I still have sciatica to this day. Like, I have to go to physical therapy for it. And when I talked to my doctor, my primary, about it, she said, "Oh, it's okay. You'll be fine." Mind you, she's a Black woman, and I was concerned. I asked my OBGYN. He told me the same thing, like, it'll go away, you're fine. I went to urgent care about a month ago, and I explained to them, like, I've had 2 epidurals within like a 2-year time frame. I fell when I was pregnant with my son, so I was off work at like 5 or 6 months on until I delivered. And every woman that I talk to, they all say the same thing. My lower back is in so much pain, and I don't know what to do. So I just wanted to know if anybody else in this room.
I definitely experienced that. I get lower back pain, and now being pregnant, it's like amplified, and I didn't feel that till I was like 8 months with my daughter, and I'm barely 5 months feeling like I'm 8 months now. But not only do I have back pain, I have these sharp, intense pains in like my upper back, almost exactly where they gave me the epidural. And I felt that just like a month or less after giving birth. And it was so fresh in my memory from giving birth. I was like, oh God, like that kind of felt like somebody just stabbed me in my spine right now. And you're right. When I do research and I look online, and any mom that I ask, if they've had the epidural, they've all said the same thing, which is, again, another thing that you're not told before. They don't talk to you about it. And like you said, they just brush it under the carpet like, it'll go away.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Now, for you, from shoulder down, do you have any pain or side effects or any type of reactions like 2 years later?
Definitely. I have a lot of lower back pain at times. I was very active. One thing that I feel like could have been done differently is that I could have been a little bit more educated, because no one plans for a C-section, right? So you're not doing all this extra research on what needs to be done and how to heal from a C-section.
Yeah.
And so I think that if that information was kind of given to me, because I got the C-section I delivered my daughter at 8:30 at night. The next morning I was walking around. So
my daughter was born at 8:30 too.
Yeah, really? So I had her, and then the next morning I was walking around. I just didn't feel like that stuff was thoroughly explained to me, in a sense. And it's kind of like, okay, well, I felt like just figure it out, and follow your own body. But I definitely don't think that I was told like the proper ways to heal from the C-section, because it's a surgery, and I have to keep reminding myself, like, you had surgery, like you have to, this is why your back feels this way, or, you can't just bounce in the gym doing this, that, or the other, doing the weights you were doing before you had the baby or whatever. It needs to be a gradual healing. And I just didn't get any, and even in my post-op care after going and delivering, they want you to come in and see the doctor. I think my OBGYN scheduled me 2 appointments, maybe 1 or 2 appointments after delivering my daughter, and I have not seen her since then in regards to my labor. So that was it. So it wasn't like there was like a lot of follow-up on, you can give somebody surgery and then not follow up. I actually was given the invisible tape. So I never had to go back and get like stitches taken out or anything like that. One thing I can say though is that the scar is not that bad as what people, told me that it would be. One thing though, it is very itchy. So like it just itches a lot. It's just a part of my, and I don't know why, but it just gets very itchy.
Even now to this day.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that's like one thing, and I've actually heard other C-section moms say the same thing, that their scar just itches for some reason. So again, I mean, not even really knowing the details on the invisible tape and how that worked, and is that secure?
Right.
Is that
What's in it? What is it made
What's
of?
in it? Is my stomach just gonna bust open next
Oh,
week?
yeah,
Or,
that is
you know,
crazy.
like you're telling me it's invisible tape, and that's what's sewing my skin back together, like. And then that's all the information that you get, you know. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's
You were blowing my mind.
a different process.
They leave you out there. That's what I find a lot of moms feel is they, even as great a care that you may get during the process, once you're done, it's completely transactional. It's like, here's your paperwork, you're out of here, and you have no support system afterwards. Yeah.
But as mamas, I think it's imperative, though, that we not only find time for our hobbies and ourselves, but more importantly, that we do find healing practices that speak to our soul and provide us with the necessary tools to maintain our emotional and mental and spiritual health also. For me, I really, prayer is everything for me. And I think that everything in my life is guided by God in my life. But I am a writer, so I journal and I blog, and that is my healing. I have been writing since I was 10 years old. I have journals from when I was 10 years old that are filled up, and it's interesting because you could just see me developing. My mom wanted to be a journalist, and she would journal also. And it's interesting because now that she's passed away and she's not here anymore, those letters and the things that she wrote makes me very intimate with her. And so it's important for me to write on paper.
Yeah.
I know with technology, everybody's using their notes and all that stuff, but I still old school journal. I'm more than likely always walking around with a journal in my purse because I just want to put the pen to the paper. But that is my healing. I love to write. It allows me to get my thoughts out. It allows me to see how I'm transforming as a person. It's very interesting because I'll look back on something that I wrote a year ago and I'll be like, dang, like, look how much I've grown. You know, like, look how much I've conquered, and the things that I used to worry about, that I don't worry about them anymore. And it's just a good way for me to measure my healing through writing. But what do you guys kind of do to find healing?
Well, for me, mainly meditation. Meditation really helped me, especially when I was going through kind of like a spiritual and a religious crisis, not really finding where I was fitting, feeling like I was missing something spiritually, and I wasn't able to connect with like the inner me. So once I found how to meditate, and I love tones, healing frequencies, that's one of the big things that really helped me. Once I found tones like 432 hertz or 580 hertz and stuff like that, which we can do a whole episode on because I would love to enlighten people on that. But those tones really kind of physically transformed me because we're made of, majority water. So music and tones, that kind of stuff really can transform you physically and spiritually. So once I did that, I was able to tap into meditation, crystals. I love crystals. And then mostly my community organization work or any volunteer work that I do, which is primarily just about social justice and ending the criminalization of our people and our students. But I do want to take it further and kind of cover the bases of advocating for mommies. And because after becoming a mom and even doing the research for this episode and hearing your guys' stories, like, it is mind-blowing how much advocacy we need, and Black women especially, how much healing that we need, and we need somebody to do it. So I hope that would further my healing process, and I think it will. So I look forward to being able, even just with this podcast, this is healing for me right now, being able to talk about it, being able to hear your guys' stories, and knowing that there's people who are waiting for this episode to be finished, to listen to it, to get some kind of healing that they probably feel that they haven't got yet. So those are some of the things that really definitely helped me. What about you, Jess?
Let me be honest. Healing initially was liquor for me. Right. And
speak on it. No.
Right, exactly.
I'm not gonna lie. The thing about that is, I have hepatitis C, which is a liver disease. So I was doing counteractive work to my body At one point, I had to completely give it up, actually, recently. So, I have learned other ways to heal and other tools. I like journaling as well.
Mm-hmm.
I love crystals. I like tarot and
Yes.
oracle cards. I just started a spiritual journey about probably right after my daughter died, honestly. I can't believe I said that. My mother died. Jesus Christ, take me down. Okay. So I had to go on this whole new journey about life and figure out who I was and what I wanted and how to heal myself. Like I said, I turned to liquor. Stupid. Because she passed away from hepatitis C as well. So it was, like I said, I was being counteractive and I didn't know what to do and I would just break down. So therapy has healed me. And finding a therapist of color really assisted me because I went to see white men, white women, Asian men, an Indian woman, just everyone but someone who looked like me and had an experience like mine. So it was very helpful to get therapy. I recommend it for everyone. It doesn't matter your age, your creed, your race. You need to talk to someone because you don't know what type of trauma you're holding on to from childhood. There might be some generational curses that you might have that you do not know about because you don't understand these things.
Absolutely. Intergenerational trauma. We carry it physically and spiritually and emotionally.
Calling it trauma is nice. I'm calling it curses because my family was cursed. I don't know who did what to who, but y'all out of pocket because I'm breaking it right here, right now. Last year in August, I got Reiki done for the first time, and that is something called energy clearing and energy healing. And so this woman I went to see, her name is Elena. I wish I had her information to plug her real quick, but she's in Concord, and she started from my crown chakra. So you have 7 main chakras: crown, your third eye, your throat, your heart, your sacral, your solar plexus, and I think I mixed up the orders. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen.
And your root.
Yeah, see my brain. Listen, 2 kids versus everybody who got 1 right now. My brain is so. You're absolutely right, root. My bad. So I went in and she performed this amazing technique on me. And I laid in complete darkness. She had some candles lit. She put her hands over my body and just opened me up. And I felt alive. I felt new. I felt renewed. And I asked her after our session, how can I get into this? Like, I had no idea what I was doing. My sister took me and was like, you need to get this done. So she told me where to go. I signed up for a class and then I became Reiki certified. Now, do I practice? Not as much as I should. I practice on my husband, on myself, on my kids, on my family members. As far as people who are not related to me, I'm a little nervous of their energy because some people are not good energy for you. And so you have to be very cautious who enters your life. I might be wishing well upon you, but you might be wishing negative and ill on me, and I don't want or need that. So Reiki has been very helpful for me, for my sanity's sake, along with therapy, going on this spiritual journey and understanding there's more to life than what I was told, and I have to unlearn certain things that I learned. It's mind-blowing. I am not the same person I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and Reiki's definitely assisted. Writing has assisted. My tarot cards that I keep in my purse have assisted because sometimes I have to take a moment out in the day, clear my mind, ask a question, pull a card, and I promise you, it's exactly what I needed in that moment. And even though these things work for me, my family's called me a witch. So I do believe in God. I do believe there is a higher source, but I'm still a witch according to my dad. So,
and that's okay.
I'll
No, we should get into that into a future episode, because I would love to explore our different spiritualities or our different takes on it, and how we coexist as people, as Black people, and as women. But I think especially in our community, you're ostracized from any little difference, from anything that's uneducated, unorthodox, or whatever, especially when it comes to spirituality, which is really sad to experience and see, because if you know your history, you know how colorful and how different and how spiritual we were in many different ways, in ways that may have looked scary to other people, especially to European people. So, just naturally being Americans or being Americanized in this society, you have a disdain on a lot of practices that were revered by a lot of our ancestors. So I hope we can get to an episode of that. And I definitely would love to explore Reiki. I want to get Reiki done. I haven't yet, but I am a little bit familiar with it. I'm not going to. I was going to say, I'm not going to pressure Jess. I'm not going to pressure her with my energy, but.
You have great energy. That's the thing. Like, I feel it. I sense it.
Exactly.
Both of you ladies have such great spirits. Really quickly, if I can, before we even got together on this podcast, we had a Skype session, and these women brought me to tears because their energy is so great. And I hope that whoever is listening, you just feel it and you tune in and you keep listening and you get encouraged by what they're saying and doing. Like, I'm tearing up right now. I'm the oldest thing up in here. And I'm just like boo-hooing. I'm trying to hold this snot back and these tears, and I'm forgetting what the hell I'm supposed to talk about, because these stories that you ladies have shared with me are real. And I feel like I felt you when you were telling me about your C-section. Even before we started recording, I was getting emotional. And then hearing about your story with the doulas and then ending up at the hospital, I wanted to hit you because you didn't drink no water.
I know. I needed somebody by my side to be like, girl, drink this water.
Right. Here's your water. Yeah, exactly. You're worried about too much. Drink some water.
It is so hard trying to be like quiet while you guys are talking, because I'm just like, oh, no, the hell, girl, if you don't, I'm gonna grab you. But I'm being respectful, making sure you can hear us during this recording. But you guys, our energy is great, and I love y'all.
Thank you so much.
I really, truly do.
Thank you so much. I think that there is a lot of ways that we can learn to heal from one another. I think that even what we just discussed were different ways and different ways that we can share with one another. Now, I'm interested in Reiki and learning more about energy healing. I know that, and kind of what Des was talking about with the disdain on different practices, I think that there's something to learn from everybody, and I think that we just kind of need to embrace as Black women that it's okay that you have your choice, and it's okay that I have my choice, and we can learn from each other, because sometimes you could be doing something and it's not working, or you want to try something different, or you need something different to heal from, because we all have different journeys and we're going to go through different traumas in our lives. So different traumas may require different healing. So it's really cool that we're able to talk about these things and get people inspired to heal and to join forces to do so. Yeah, especially as Black mamas and Black women, because they want to leave us out.
All the time. Absolutely. That's why it's just so important that we have this podcast and platforms and things like this. I hope that this inspires other people to create more content that can help heal moms and heal women out of this. But I just want to thank you guys for sharing your stories. Those are very personal stories, and we're sharing them on a very public platform. So that takes a lot of bravery. So I thank you guys for that. And I want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in as well, because like we said, without your support, this podcast would not exist. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you for your support. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Boss E Mamas Podcast. That's BOSS.E-MAMAS-PODCAST. And you guys can access all our shows on our YouTube channel, which is also Bossy Mamas Podcast, and they will also be available on iTunes. Thank you guys again, and love and peace. Bossy Mamas.